All right. Well, welcome to the Speed Traveler Roadshow. I'm Chris Evertsen. That's Charlie Frank, and you're listening to us live on KHTS AM 1220 FM 98.1. Of course, Charlie, we're available wherever you download your favorite podcast. And check us out on social media at The Speed Traveler is our tagline, if you will, or monogram, if you will. And Charlie, got a great show here today in the studio.
Yeah. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the Speed Traveler Roadshow, Chris and I've been involved with automobiles our entire life. We went to the Long Beach Grand Prix when we were 5 years old and have never stopped going to car races since then, have we?
Yeah.
I actually think we even started earlier, about 3 years old at Riverside Raceway.
It really did.
But...
And, and you said we've been involved with cars our whole life. And, and I've never really talked about this.
Right.
But I was born in July, and I was one of the first babies born on that day.
Right.
But to the whole being involved with the cars your whole life, I was half born in my parents' Rambler station wagon.
Oh, no way.
On the way to the hospital.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I was just thinking about that when you said that. I was like, my
Which
mom,
hospital? Do you remember?
I think it was it St. John's?
Oh, yeah. St. John's,
yeah, I think it was St. John's in Santa Monica. Yeah.
That's crazy.
So
We talk race car driving. We talk Formula One, which is really hot right now around the world. One of the most, probably the hottest sports property in the world right now is Formula One. And we talk about buying and selling cars. Chris and I have bought and sold hundreds of cars, and we've lost on some, we've done okay on some, and we've won on some. So we try and share that knowledge. If you're out there looking for a classic or exotic car, we got some tips that we're going to talk about in segment B on that.
Nice. And, just recently, and then we're going to talk a little bit about Formula One a little bit later on, like you mentioned, and the Long Beach Grand Prix, but just this past week, we did a live show at Moto Ren. They're starting a cars and coffee event. They're near LAX airport.
Right.
And what a great showroom. What great people.
Yeah.
I really want to talk about that a little bit. I know it's not really on our agenda.
Right.
But I mean, Letta was just so gracious, and Austin, they opened up the doors to us.
Yeah.
And they introduced us to a whole new group of people. And what's interesting, it was a wet, rainy day.
It was.
And I was still impressed with how many people, and when I say wet and rainy, I mean, that was a torrential downpour.
Pouring, yeah.
It was a downpour. I mean, cars were spinning off the highway left and right.
We saw 3 cars spun out on the drive down there.
And but it was such a great, group of people that showed up. I mean, people were very dedicated to it. And I'm really excited that Moto Ren's going to be doing their cars and coffee. I guess bi-weekly or bi-monthly.
Well, I don't know.
I don't know. We'll ask. You can go to motoren.com, motorenn.com, and they'll have everything there. That's also their Instagram account, Evertsen.
And what I like about Moto Ren, and they're not paying us to say this, is that they not only sell cars, and they do what Austin was saying is a white glove experience, where you can just be in Scottsdale, Arizona, order a car, and it'll show up a few days later in a truck. But what's cool is they also offer service on the cars, and they offer consignment. So, if you've got a car, you could store it there. They'll take care of it. So it's interesting business.
And we must say, when we say car, we're talking very high end cars.
That's true.
I mean, it's Lamborghini, it's Bentley.
There's no
Ferrari.
Tercels there.
No. What? What's
no
wrong?
Toyota Tercels.
Come on. What's wrong with the 1983 Toyota Tercel? As a matter of fact, honestly, I would kill for a Toyota Tercel now.
I know. I agree. What was the great Toyota that they made in the 80s? It was the twin cam, Corolla.
The Corolla. Yeah, they first
the mid 80s Corolla, and it had like the 16 valve, right?
Yeah.
Twin cam. That was like the hot motor. I think it only made like 128 horsepower.
Yeah, but that was the hot
but
hatch
it was better
motor.
than 90 horsepower.
Yeah, exactly, which everything else was at the time. So but I mean, it was really fun because we shot our, we're going to talk a little bit about F1. Just a very brief segment on the upcoming Chinese Grand Prix this weekend. And we did our F1 deep dive show.
Right.
And Austin was actually a guest on the show. And I was really impressed with how much he knew.
Yeah,
You
he
know,
did.
it
He
was
knew. Well, what's interesting is we're talking about the co-owner of MotoRen, and Austin Haldeman.
Haldeman. Yeah.
Austin Haldeman.
Thank you for,
And but he's been involved. He said he worked for Edmunds, and he also worked for Honda Performance Development.
That's right.
Which they don't make the Formula One engine, but they make all the other engines, the Le Mans engines and the
prototype
sports car,
engines, sport car engines,
prototypes. So, I would it makes sense to me that he definitely knew his stuff about F1. So, but yeah, it was a fun trip. We had an interesting meal afterwards, didn't we?
Well, I would say the meal that MotoRen provided, which was Randy's Donuts,
that was fantastic.
By far superior than anything else we ate afterwards.
The place can remain nameless, I guess. They probably deserve to be called out a little bit for.
I'll take the hit on that one. And I loved this place as a kid. I remember fond memories of going there with my dad and getting big German pancakes or which are nice big pan-filled pancakes, or the Swedish pancakes, which is like a thick crepe. But Dinah's down by the airport is an absolute dump. Do not eat at Dinah's. I mean, it was awful.
Yeah, it really was. It's been a long time since I've had a really bad meal.
It could not have been any worse.
Yeah, the service was bad. Everything came out at different times. I didn't get my egg whites that I paid.
They ran out of egg whites.
Yeah,
they brought you an omelet, but ran out of egg whites.
Paid an extra $4 for it for them to not get it right. You didn't get your meal came in 3 segments.
Yeah.
Timed about 5 minutes apart.
Yeah, 1 egg at a time, 1 piece of French toast at a time. It wasn't that bad, but it was
it was pretty bad. It was a big letdown. I was really excited about eating there.
I think we need to change the sign here from Roadshow to the Speed Traveler Food Critic.
Yeah, exactly. But with that said, and I mean, we're getting a little off target.
On the food thing, I just want to express again, though, that Randy's donuts were incredible.
Randy's were amazing. And Randy's has a Cars and Coffee.
Yes.
I can't remember. I think it's like the second Saturday of every month in Burbank by the Randy's Donuts.
Well, where can we find where all the cars and coffees are happening around the country?
A good, that at carsandcoffeeevents.com. Yeah. And our buddy who's the owner of it, he assembled this amazing list of cars and coffee. And so if you're if you're listening to us on podcast and you're not in a big city, you can still find a Cars and Coffee. Just go to carsandcoffeeevents.com.
Yeah, nationwide listing of great cars and coffee events. As a matter of fact, the MotoRen event is now on their site.
Yeah,
as they develop that event. So yeah.
But getting back to the food for one quick follow up. So yeah, we had a very poor breakfast at Dinah's, but the night before we went to La Scala in Beverly Hills. And for those of you who don't know that restaurant, it is an old school. It's been open 60 years or so.
60 plus years now. Yeah.
A lot of people in there look like they were there the first day it opened.
With the day open.
Yeah.
But everyone was so happy.
They were.
All the patrons that are there, everyone was super, super happy. Yeah. And
the chef Jason, who's a car guy, who's got a Jeep, he came up with this amazing dish which you loved. It was a ravioli, right?
Yeah, it was a chicken and a mascarpone stuffed ravioli.
Right.
But it had a smoked cheese in there as well.
Yeah.
And oh my God, that was absolutely incredible.
Amazing.
It was so good.
Yeah.
It was so good.
And here again, we're not getting paid to say this, but if you happen to be in the Beverly Hills area, go into a La Scala restaurant. It's on Cannon Drive. Go to the bar and ask for Junior or the chef Jason or Matt.
Yeah, or Matt. Yep.
Crazy Matt. Crazy. And you guys will have a great time. Tell them the Speed Traveler sent you.
Yeah, and it's definitely old school Beverly Hills, LA, West LA eatery. It's the big plush leather seats, red leather seats. It's classic, it's refined, and it's clean.
It is such a great restaurant.
And the people, everyone there it's just awesome. So.
Yeah. But all right.
So what's this show about, Charlie?
Yeah. So
what do we normally talk about?
Well, today you would think it's a food review, but today we're going to talk about our featured marque is the Acura, and that's in honor of the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach, which the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach is our favorite motorsports event of the year. And you've been to lots of Formula One races. I've been to Formula One races. We've been to Monaco, Spa, Le Mans,
yeah.
and Long Beach. The Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach is right up there at the top always.
For me, it's right up there. And one of the biggest reasons for me that it's at the top of the list is that the plethora of events that take place at the Long Beach Grand Prix around the IndyCar race, which is the marquee event, and the accessibility that fans have to get into everything at that event. So that's why I love the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach, and that's why Acura is our marquee car of the day.
Yeah, and we're gonna take a quick break in a minute here, but we're gonna come back. We're gonna talk about what Acuras you can buy now that are probably gonna double in value. And then we're going to come back and talk Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach in our segment after that. So please join us. And this is Charlie and Chris from the Speed Traveler Roadshow. We'll be right back.
All right. Well, welcome back to the Speed Traveler Roadshow. You're listening to Chris and Charlie here on KHTS AM 1220 FM 98.1. And of course, wherever you download your favorite podcast. Also, check us out on all the social medias and YouTube at The Speed Traveler. And Charlie, what's coming up in our next segment here?
All right. In our next segment, in honor of the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach, which is coming up this weekend, our featured marque of the day, Chris, is the Acura.
Yeah. All right.
And particularly the Acura NSX.
It's really hard to not love the Acura NSX. I mean, the Integra Type 2
Type
R, is an amazing car, but really the anchor tenant here at Acura is the NSX.
Yeah, I agree. It was Acura and Honda's essentially their first supercar.
Yeah.
And it is a beautiful car. If you haven't seen it, we'll put a picture up on on YouTube and also on the KHTS radio station. But the NSX they made. There's basically been two iterations of it. There was the first one that model years were 1991 to 2005, and then they came back later in 2017 and did an updated one, and that ran for about 6 years. The original ones, the 1991 2005s, I won't say we've missed the boat on buying those, but man, you could buy them for $50,000 3 years ago. And now the cheapest one I could find was 70, and it wasn't that great of one. So it's just amazing how that car has really caught on. It's going up in value.
And I think Acura did a really smart thing. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there was a Senna edition of the Acura NSX, and I think that car was the first time that they took a Formula One world champion and branded their marquee performance car, supercar,
to a driver.
To a driver.
I know Lotus did the John Player special.
Yeah,
they did the John Player edition of the Lotus.
But that was the team and the sponsor.
Yeah,
that was not the driver.
It wasn't the Mario Andretti version.
Mario Andretti. It wasn't Emerson Fittipaldi.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I digress. That 1973 Lotus, John Player Special Lotus that Emerson Fittipaldi won the world championship in was probably one of the prettiest Formula One cars of all time.
Yeah, yeah. But
not that has anything to do with Acura.
No. But it has something to do with Long Beach Grand Prix.
Yes,
which we're going to talk about in our next segment. But getting back to the NSX, so they made a little less than 9,000 of these cars between 1991 and 2005. And around the world, they made almost double that number. So about 16,000 worldwide, but 9,000 here in the States. So there's quite a few of those around.
But it's not a lot.
No, it's not a lot. It's still, and there's quite a few of them around. The first one had the 3-liter V6 VTEC, which put out 270 horsepower. But what I think is great about the Acura NSX is at the end of the day, it's a Honda.
Yeah.
Like when you get it fixed, it's not like you're taking it to the Ferrari dealer and you're going to get
You
hit
could
up for a $25,000 bill.
Yeah, to your point, you could literally take that NSX to any Honda or Acura dealer
Right.
and have it serviced.
Right.
It's
yeah.
not outside their purview. And it's a rather simple
it's a
car.
Honda.
It's a Honda. It's like, shoot, we love our Honda S2K that we put on the track.
Yeah.
It's a fun car. The S2K is a super fun car to drive. I'm surprised we're not going to talk a little bit about the S2K.
Oh, no, we should talk about the S2K.
But I mean, because the NSX is the top dog in the Acura lineup.
Yep.
And I guess we are talking about Acura, so I mean, it makes sense that we're not talking about the Honda S2K. But to your point, I mean, at the end of the day, that Acura is a Honda, and it's super reliable.
Right, exactly.
And you, as a driver, have to really work hard to destroy it and show just absolute negligence. To beat one of those into the ground.
Yeah, they handle well, and they're fast, quick. I'd say not fast, but they're quick.
They're quick.
270 horsepower, and they upgraded. If you're looking for a little newer, a little more rare version, in '97 they switched to a 3.2 liter, and they went up to 290 horsepower. And there's less of those cars. The bulk of the NSXs were made in the early '90s. So by the time they got to 97, they really started slowing down on the numbers that we're producing. And there was years where there was only a couple hundred made, 200 or 300.
Wow.
So those would really be the ones you want to identify, is the higher horsepower. And that it's the 3.2 liter engine. Also, it's referred to as the NA2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, NA2 versus the NA1.
Okay.
So those are ones you really want to look at.
So it's the same engine block, though, effectively? And
I don't know. I know the first was a 3 liter and the next was a 3.2.
3.2 liter,
so
which
I'm
is
not
just
sure
basically the volume.
Bored it out or not. Yeah. But so look for those. The NA2 versions, 97 plus, they're not really that much more. They're a little more expensive. The least expensive one we saw today was about 80.
Right. And it's still like really, really good nick.
I agree. I agree. Yeah. You can get a good one for 85,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So I highly recommend that. It's just going to go up and up and up. I mean, unfortunately, we all missed.
Yeah.
These were $45,000, $50,000 cars 5 years ago. And they've really gone up, almost doubled, in 5 short years.
It's interesting how that seems. I mean, that era of car, that's what we're going to see happen, period.
Yeah.
But it's also interesting how the COVID generation had an effect on the used car market.
Yeah, everything went up.
Yeah.
Because people were sitting at home bored.
Yeah. And just people were, what were you doing? Oh, shopping online. What'd you buy? I bought a car.
Yeah.
I bought 8 cars.
Yeah, I know, exactly. For those who could afford it, would go buy all the cars. But so
also to the NSX, we're always big fans of the very analog car. And when I speak to the analog part of the car, one of the biggest things you can be analog with your car is the manual transmission.
Agreed.
Versus the electronic paddle shifting.
And they're worth more. Though if you can find a 97 and newer NSX with a manual, that's the way to go, because they were in much less numbers. They have more power. And so those are going to go up more than the rest of them. Just one last footnote on the Acura NSX, the first generation, is they updated the body a little bit in 2002, and they took out the pop-up headlights, and they did a flush.
That's right.
They did a flush hood with the headlights going
recessed
through
in there.
Yeah, recessed in there.
They must have watched Corvette Summer.
Yeah, exactly. We always talk about. I don't know if I've ever seen it, but
what?
I remember I saw it, but I was really disappointed because it's starring Mark Hamill. From Star Wars.
Yeah.
And it was right after his big fame in Star Wars.
Right.
And I was like, oh, it's going to be about racing. And I don't remember the movie, but it wasn't about racing, was it?
Yeah. So here's what I remember, and tell me if I'm wrong. He was a high school student, and in his auto shop class, they built this Corvette.
Right.
And they tricked it out, advanced lead bodywork, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
It either got stolen or they sold it.
Right.
And he wanted the car. He was in love with the car, Mark Hamill's character. I cannot remember the name.
Right.
And he chased it to Las Vegas, where he met stripper / dancer Annie Potts. Oh my God. I can't believe I'm pulling that out of the
Wow,
hat.
that's impressive.
And they went on an adventure to try to find this car, which at the end of the day was kind of a lump. Now, here's the sad thing. That's the stuff that sticks in my brain.
Oh my God, yeah.
But who was the 12th president of the United States? I have no idea.
Corvette Summer. But back to the Acura NSX. So what's interesting is the car went away in 2005, and then it took about 12 years, and then they relaunched it. And this time it had a 3.5 liter twin turbo car with 3 electric motors.
Yeah.
So weird, right?
It's
that we
just
were
so
talking
weird.
about that. 2 of the electric motors, though, help drive the all-wheel drive system.
The all-wheel drive. And that's a big change from the predecessor.
It sure
went
is.
all-wheel drive.
Yeah. They didn't have a manual transmission, sadly.
Nope.
Only paddle shifts. But with that said, it's 573 horsepower. It looks amazing.
And it's not a whole lot heavier than the original.
No. So those cars are about 100. We found one this morning on Car Gurus for 111,000. Yeah. It only had 13,000 miles on it. I mean, that's probably a better investment right now than the older one, because the older ones are getting top value.
Yeah.
And the newer version, 2017 to 2023, hasn't really taken off.
Well, that's the nice thing about current model supercars is the second they come off the showroom floor, they depreciate immensely.
Right.
You know, and if you can find any supercar that was sold 7 years ago, that's 7, sometimes 5, depending on the car, but that 7 to 10 year time period is when they depreciate the most.
Yeah.
So that's kind of your window.
Yeah.
And I think to your point, this next generation of the Acura NSX is kind of, even though it's much earlier in that span, is kind of falling into that category.
Yeah.
It didn't capture the market like the earlier version, the first version.
But what was probably bad at the time is now a big positive. They didn't make very many. I looked and I had to add them up by year, and there's only 300-400 made per year.
Really?
So it looks like there's only about 2,500 worldwide.
Oh, yeah.
Worldwide of the new. And so that's a really small number.
That is a really small number. So that's a great point.
I agree. And the car was $220,000-$30,000 new. You can get it for less than half now.
Yeah.
I bet they'll go down a little more in the next 5 years, and then they're going to go right back.
Yeah, and that's in that window.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And then, you get 12 years, 10 years down the line, and they're going to go back to, theoretically, their original listing price.
Yeah.
Which is kind of nice. You can you can invest $100,000 for a year or two and turn around and make $100,000 off that investment, as long as you maintain the car.
For sure.
And I'm not saying don't drive the car. I'm saying maintain the car. And anytime you can garage your car, and any supercar should be garaged.
Agreed.
I mean, don't let your supercar sit out in a hailstorm in the middle of Texas.
No.
Not a good idea.
Bad idea. But all right, with that said, that wraps up our little segment on the featured marque, which is the Acura. And when we come back from the break, we are going to talk about the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach. This is the Speed Traveler Roadshow on KHTS Radio.
All right, well, welcome back to the Speed Traveler Roadshow. I'm Chris Evertsen. That's Charlie Frank, and you're listening to us live on KHTS AM 1220 FM 98.1. Of course, we're available wherever you download your favorite podcasts. Of course, check us out on social media. At The Speed Traveler is our moniker. And hit those like buttons, follow us, heckle us, do whatever it is you want to do. Actually, I like being heckled. Make a comment. So comments. They can be pleasant. Too. They can be harsh. I don't mind. I take them equally with equal aplomb.
Yeah, and we have a lot of stuff up on the Speed Traveler YouTube channel. So that's a great place to go. Go to our SpeedTube. I like that SpeedTube.
I like that SpeedTube.
Go to our Speed Traveler YouTube page, and you can see all sorts of crazy videos that we've done with cars and reviewing cars and taking some road trips. And we have a new series up there. It's called Formula One Deep Dive. And we really get into the nitty gritty of Formula One, and we talk about the upcoming races, and we review the past race. So check it out on YouTube.
Yeah, and speaking of upcoming races, in this segment, we're going to be talking about the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach. And I gotta tell you, I am so excited
Yeah.
for this event. I look forward to it every year.
The race is coming up this weekend, April 19, 2021, in the beautiful city of Long Beach, California. And what an amazing thing, the race. Look what it's done for the city of Long Beach.
Oh my God, a sailor town
Yeah.
where the classy place was the Pussycat Theater.
Yeah, exactly. And almost 50 years later, the race started in 1975. Almost 50 years later, the town is really turned around. There's all these great condo complexes, high rises. There's great restaurants, and we're going to talk a little bit about one of those great restaurants in a minute here. But the race really turned that town around, didn't it?
It really did, and the organization has just done a fantastic job with bringing in a variety of events. Obviously the anchor tenant here is the IndyCar Championship race. Right. It's the big race of the year. As a matter of fact, I mean, Andretti, the name Andretti's been in the news a lot because of their efforts to try to get in the Formula One.
Right.
And really the race year that's kind of kept the Long Beach Grand Prix on the map was 1978.
Right.
Yeah, 78 when Mario Andretti, I'm an American Mario. Wait. It was 77 he won.
It
was 77.
I think he came in second in 78, but he won the race World Championship in 78.
But he won the race in 77, which was really important to the Long Beach Grand Prix.
It sure was.
Because it was an American driver winning the race and in a Lotus. Which everyone loved Colin Chapman.
Right.
So that was a very important race. I mean, granted, there was Formula One races before that date, and it started off with the F5000 race in 1975. But that was a very pivotal event year for the Long Beach Grand Prix, and it's set the precedent for what it is today. And it's an incredible show.
Yeah, and as you just said, it started with Formula 5000, which was a North American racing series. In 1975, and then it became Formula One. I think we had Jim McKellian, the CEO, on a few weeks ago, and I believe he said Formula One went from 76 to 83.
Correct.
And then IndyCar came in as you said, as like the featured brand, and IndyCar's been there now since 1984.
Yeah,
which is exactly 40 years this weekend.
Wow, unbelievable.
Yeah, but it's a great race, and you kind of touched on it, and that is that there's all these other great things going on. Like one of the favorite thing, my favorite thing of the weekend is the Stadium Super Trucks with Robbie Gordon. We should have had Robbie Gordon on.
I know. What were we thinking? I mean, he's a good dude and an incredible driver, and his son is equally incredible behind the wheel of those Stadium Super Trucks. And I mean, it's just crazy watching those guys get launched off these steel ramps they bring out on the track. And they're literally going higher than the fence line. They're going as high of the bridges. Yeah. And a couple of those jumps are set up from a driver's perspective. I mean, it just seems nuts to me. You get launched off this jump. When we start coming down off the, on your descent, all you can see is this bridge in front of you.
Yeah, right.
It's like, oh my God, it's kind of nuts. And even after the race or after the practice sessions or everything, all the drivers put on a great little stunt show as they work their way back to the pits. It's just such a cool aspect
and
of the
it's
event.
Funny. It's only about 10 or 15 lap race, but the crowd just gets on their feet and they're 10 deep on the fence to watch this. And there's some good places to watch it. The front straightaway is a great spot, but the only issue there is the crowd's so big right there.
Yeah.
It's a little harder to see. We like watching over on I guess it would be about turn 6 and between 6 and 7 on Pine Street, right in front of the entrance to the convention center.
Exactly.
And that's a great place. You could get really close to the fence and you could see the cars just take off. They're the trucks.
And you can see that from the convention center, from the upper level right there. And another reason why that's such a great place to watch the trucks is they do come off a turn and they're all squirrely and they all are approaching a ramp or a jump. But it's also one of the widest spot, if not the widest spot on the track. So at the end of the race or at the end of the session, you can count on somebody doing donuts or something silly. I think we even have a great video on our YouTube page or our Instagram page of Max and
Max Gordon
and Robbie Gordon doing pirouettes together. It's just such great precision driving.
Yeah, really fun event. And also, if drifting's your thing, The drifting show is on Friday and Saturday night. Right?
Yeah, and it's at the evening time, and
Yep.
it's located on the front straight.
Right.
Excuse me, the back straight.
Yeah.
Between turn 7 and
9, 10, and 11.
Yeah,
right?
so they start out near turn 7, they go down to turn 8, and they set up their drifts through that night, and then they do a really fun drift through that interesting
9, 10, 11,
9, 10, 11 complex, and then into the hairpin.
Yeah.
And it's a great show, and what's cool is they do it at night, and so all the smoke and the sparks and the lighting that the
Right.
cars have on there,
Yeah.
and the fans are going crazy, and they got a DJ going.
Right.
I mean, our buddy Matthew with Garage E-Stick
I was
has a
just
few
gonna say,
cars.
those guys are going to be there.
So, I mean, another, and the list goes on. I mean, the drift cars are great.
Yeah, there's sports car racing. IMSA's got a race going on. There's the historic IndyCar race, which our buddy Dave Freitas is going to be in. And there's a lot going on. There's
Live concerts.
Live concerts. There's the GT2, 3, and 4 series.
Yeah, and that's a really exciting event to watch because that's the biggest field of the weekend.
Yeah, and those are cars that are similar. Like if you were to go buy a Lambo, it's basically the race car is really similar to what you could buy right on the street.
Absolutely.
A Ferrari, there's some Porsches in there.
Ferraris, you said Ferraris, the Lamborghinis,
Yep.
Mercedes. I mean, some really technically advanced street cars,
and
but are fully caged. I mean, they're not street cars by any sense of the imagination.
And you know what? We don't have a whole lot of time left, but since we've been to every race, what advice would you give someone that's never been to Long Beach? Like, where would they stand? Where do they get their ticket?
Well, let's start. That's a great question, Charlie. And let's start with just getting in there. And I highly recommend, if you've never been to an event like this before, go on Friday.
I agree.
You know, go on Friday. I mean, there's a number of reasons to do that because the fan base isn't quite as large, generally speaking.
Mm-hmm.
Access is much more open. And ticket availability, as a matter of fact, there are free tickets available. Now, I believe it's still going on, but if you go to an Acura dealership and you kind of have to test drive an Acura, or you can just say I'm here for the free tickets. You know, you can be honest, and you'll get a free pass for Friday. It's a general admission pass, but that's the thing that I love about this event. Accessibility with just a general admission ticket pretty much gets you everywhere.
That's true. And also the local paper, the Long Beach Press Telegram, generally, I mean, they've done it for every year for about the past 20 years, have a free Friday pass for fans. So you just got to find one of those newspapers and get in for free on Friday.
And as far as places to watch, I mean, we haven't even touched on this part. There is a huge expo pavilion.
Right.
And there's tons of interesting automotive
it's all free
products.
as part of your entry.
It's all free as part of, like you said.
Yep.
Lots of automotive stuff, lots of food items, lots of, oddly mattresses and, everything's for sale. But so many people have interactive booths. Like there's a simulated drive, race simulator there where you can race against other people.
Right.
That's loads of fun. They have a kids zone with bouncy stuff and all the kind of things that a young tyke might like.
Yeah, it's very family oriented, very family friendly. The kids are going to go nuts over the stadium super trucks jumping in the air. It looks like a bunch of Hot Wheels flying through the air. And I think from my side, I would say you go for free on Friday. Saturday, you can get a general admission. I mean, of course, they've got ticket packages still available. For all 3 days. For some of the grandstands are sold out, but there are still grandstand tickets available. They have some hospitality, although most of them are sold out, but I saw there was still a couple hospitality packages where you get lunch still open. So check it out.
Yeah.
Definitely check it out. So what I would say is if you buy a general admission ticket, I think the few places I like is we mentioned it between I think it's turn 6 and 7 or 7 and 8 on Pine Avenue.
6 and 7.
Yeah, I like that area. And then we also like the super speed tunnel.
Yeah, that's really cool.
That's in reference to Disney's monorail, not monorail, People Mover.
People Mover, yeah.
Where they have the super speed tunnel. But there's a great place to watch on just over the bridge.
Just over the bridge as you're getting to the convention center.
Yeah.
And it's like the first thing you see.
Yeah. So you can go over the bridge there so that you're on the water side of the circuit. So you're in the Shoreline Village area.
Yeah.
And the cars come around, the Indy cars come around the corner. They're going about 190.
Yeah.
And it's just an unbelievable experience.
It really, I don't think there's really a bad place to watch. I think the key takeaway here is just get a general admission ticket. If you're comfortable with walking and, wear your comfortable shoes,
right.
explore the whole area and find the area and the item that you like, you know, because there isn't a bad spot at the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach.
I would add one more. I know one year we were just walking around with the family and stuff, and we ended up down in turn 1. And that was a great spot because at the start of the green flag and every subsequent restart, the cars come in there like a beehive, or like a swarm of bees. And it's really action packed. So that's another good spot.
And it's right there by the aquarium. So and the aquarium is open,
right?
So you can then go visit the aquarium if you like.
Right. Go see some ants.
There's so much to do at the Long Beach Grand Prix that it's not going to take just 1 year to experience it all.
Yeah.
You're gonna want to go back.
Right. All right. With that said, we're going to take our last break. This is the Speed Traveler Roadshow. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the Speed Traveler Roadshow here on KHTS AM 1220 FM 98.1. Of course, available wherever you download your favorite podcasts, and of course on all the social media networks at the Speed Traveler. And Charlie, I'm here. I'm Chris Evertsen. That's Charlie Frank. And in this segment, Charlie, we're going to kind of do a little F1 preview, but honestly, I think we need to step back. We didn't quite finish everything we wanted to talk about with the Long Beach, Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach. And it's kind of a big one.
Yeah.
It's kind of a big one.
It is. So I'd say 80% of the year, we've been to every single one of these races. So it's there. You know what? It isn't quite 50 because we missed a year in COVID.
Right.
Because I was trying to figure out the math and I'm like, how is this not the 50th anniversary? But we lost a year during COVID.
We lost a year, and then they shifted it the following year to September.
September, yeah.
Which was actually kind of interesting.
That was. But for a lot of those races and race weekends, we've stayed on the Queen Mary. And it's a
the haunted Queen Mary.
And it's a really unique place to stay. And it's not the Ritz. I'll just be honest. And I think the Queen Mary would be okay admitting that. But
it was the Ritz when she first sailed in
1914, maybe? I'll check that date.
Double check that. Yeah, something like that.
But it's just such a unique place. I mean, where else can you stay on a 100-year-old ship,
and have an adventure in its own right?
Yeah, exactly.
And the best thing is, if you do stay at the Queen Mary, there's a boat shuttle that goes across the harbor, right to the track. The harbor taxi goes right to the track, so it's super convenient.
Yeah, you could park your car at the Queen Mary. You could check into the hotel. It's reasonably priced.
Yeah,
and you could take the water taxi right across to the Shoreline Village and be right there at the track entrance. You don't even have to touch your car all weekend.
I know. Actually, the water taxi is going to lands on a dock that's going to be very near where our friends Rich and Liz are staying. They're staying on a boat there.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
oh, interesting. Yeah. So, the Queen Mary, it's a cool place. Like you got to get into the spirit of it. I mean, the showers are original.
Spirit.
Spirit. That's pretty funny. But the showers are original, bathtubs, the tile work. I personally think it's really cool.
Yeah.
And I love staying there.
And I'm not certain if it's a name we gave the suite, but there's a Winston, I think it's actually called the Winston Churchill suite.
Yeah.
And we stayed in it. And what's crazy is there's all these historical books in there, and maybe I shouldn't say this, but they're not like glued in. You can actually read these books, and there's some books there that are 80, 90 years old. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, what's funny is I was confusing the Titanic, which it was the anniversary of it sinking a few days ago.
Yeah.
The Queen Mary didn't come along until April 3rd of 1934.
Okay.
So it's about 85 years old.
Yeah.
But it looks a lot like the Titanic.
Oh, yeah.
And that in itself is a little spooky.
And there's been years where the Queen Mary, when you look at it from outside and from the front, it's kind of listing to one side or the other.
Yeah, it's true.
But now the city has it back, and they're spending a lot of money to rejuvenate it, revitalize it.
We're staying in the recently refurbished room. So
excellent.
We'll give you a review next week on how those went. But it's a great place.
But as far as other hotels, I mean, you're not going to see a lot of drivers at the Queen Mary.
No.
But the Hyatt's at the epicenter of the Long Beach Grand Prix.
Right.
It's literally attached, above the convention center there. And you're right in the middle of the track.
You are.
And they're not cheap. But if you can get a suite,
it's a 3-day minimum.
And it's a 3-day minimum, you have to. Actually, I think they changed it to 4 days.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken. But you'll also see a lot of the drivers, team owners, mechanics, and all, a lot of the the bigwigs all stay there. And
Yeah.
we talk about this in Formula One races. We're talking about this in Las Vegas. It's a
Right.
great place to kind of see a lot of the drivers and team motors and stuff
And then,
like that.
also right on Ocean Avenue, there's the Hilton, which is a place where we always park. There's the Renaissance, which is right by our favorite restaurant, Le Opera.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's the Sheraton. So, some really good places there. And, since we mentioned Le Opera, we're going to be coming to you live on Friday night and Saturday night. You can get us on Instagram Live. We're going to be broadcasting live from Le Opera Restaurant, which is on First and Pine. And if you're going to the Long Beach Grand Prix, or if you're going to go try it for the first time, come by at 6:30 p.m. and come into the bar area. We're going to be all set up and doing our podcast right there.
Have a cocktail with us. Have a meal. I mean, the food's amazing. Terry, the owner there, has just a fantastic group of people, and he doesn't call them people, he calls them family. And they all refer to each other as family. I mean, some of the folks that at work there, some of that family have been there for over 25 years. It's incredible. And the level of service is so much better than Diana's. Do not eat at Diana's. Dinah's. I don't even want to call it the right Dinah's. Do not eat there. Go to Le Opera, save a couple extra pennies. Go to L'Opera and have a fabulous butternut squash tortellini. Is always ravioli is always amongst our favorite. And
maybe it is tortellini.
It doesn't matter. It's so good. It's so buttery. You're going to love it. A little bit of sage. But more importantly, it pairs so well with Vassar Vineyards V12 wine.
Vassar Vineyards V12, one of our favorite wines, owned by, I think it's 96, 97 IndyCar champ Jimmy Vassar. His sister Vicky Vassar runs the winery. They're actually not, interestingly, they're not open to the public.
One of the few.
If you do call them, they will take groups in. I think you have to spend a certain amount of money, which is only fair, because you will have an experience that you can't have anywhere else in the world. It's not like going to the big wineries where there's buses coming and going and they're charging you, nickel and diming you for everything.
Absolutely.
If you go to V12 Vassar Vineyards, you can have an amazing experience where there's 10 or 12 people there.
Yeah, and that's it. And their tasting room is it's a beautiful setting, and the wine is delicious.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting, and it's unique, I think, to the area, is they have grapes growing on 3 different facings. So they get a great variety of south, north, west facing growth. On old growth, on top of that.
And so that's not in Long Beach, but we brought it up because V12 Vineyards has great wine at Le Opera. But it is, if you're going to the NASCAR race in Sonoma, or you're going for a wine tasting weekend in Sonoma, reach out to V12 Vineyards, and they'll give you an amazing experience.
Well, that was a really lovely extension of the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach deep dive, when really we should be diving
now we're going to do a short dive
of
Formula One Grand Prix of China coming up this weekend.
Yeah, and we do, we should mention here that we do a completely separate show. We just did a live one at Moto Ren on the Speed Traveler deep dive, Formula One deep dive, and it's exclusively deep dive.
On Formula One.
On Formula One. It's exclusively deep dive.
Deep dive only on Formula One. I like that. But it's a great show. If you're really a gearhead, you're really into F1. I mean, people are really into F1 now because of F1 Drive to Survive.
Yeah, I mean, that show, Netflix has just exploded the market. And genius to them for doing that. And they're continuing to do that.
Yeah, but quickly on this weekend's F1 race, they haven't had a race in China for 5 years because of COVID, I'm assuming. I don't even know.
Other political
and some other issues. Yeah. But China has some high-speed stuff, and they have some long straightaways. So which cars do you see at the front this weekend?
It's interesting because the Chinese circuit, the Grand Prix of China circuit, has some similar elements to the Japanese Grand Prix, the famous S's, turn 3, 4, 5, and 6 at Suzuka. There's a similar section. So the cars that performed well there are going to do well on that sector of the track.
And in a straight line, I mean, obviously the Red Bull, the all-conquering Red Bull, Max Verstappen won the championship the last 3 seasons. That car, of course, is going to be the odds-on favorite because that car in a straight line is fast.
It's very fast.
But the Ferrari engine, I think, is good because the Ferraris are fast in a straight line also.
They are, and they're showing great drivability. You know,
Yeah.
Carlos Sainz has been really putting that car in all the right places. Charles
Yep.
Leclerc, I think, had one of the drives of the weekend last
Japan,
week in
yep.
Japan. So I really expect for the Ferraris to represent well
Yeah.
in China. But
Yeah.
that's not to say we shouldn't look at what the McLaren
Right.
and what the Aston Martin can do.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, no, I
mean-
agree. I think that the Mercedes is kind of going to be nowhere because they're just not fast in a straight line. And you even heard some of the chatter. I mean, with that said, Aston Martin's not too fast and straight because you heard Lance Stroll complaining about.
He was complaining vehemently about
So
that.
I'd
Lance
say-
is not one to pull his punches on the radio, but big asterisk here. Aston Martin's supposedly coming with some big upgrades for the
Right.
Chinese Grand Prix, and even Alonso is kind of
They're-
expressing, "Watch out for what we can do."
Yeah, I mean, they're going to need it. But in my mind, it's as far as the top five. I think it's, of course, Red Bull because they're fast and straight. Ferrari's much improved, and McLaren is good.
Yes.
They did really well last year at Silverstone, which is a high speed, long straightaway track, and China's a little bit like that. I think Aston Martin probably next, and Mercedes probably probably hasn't been the fifth best team in 12 or 15 years.
I would not be surprised to see Mercedes getting some competition from a couple of the other teams
Yeah.
a little bit deeper in the pack. I
Right.
mean, Valtteri Bottas has
Yeah.
shown incredible skill in the whatever that team's called now, Stake F1,
Stake
Sauber,
F1, right.
You know, and so it's going to be interesting to see how far back Mercedes tumble.
Yeah, no, I agree. So we're almost out of time. You have a pick for?
I do, and I claim this pick in our actual F1 deep dive,
Right.
And that's Carlos Sainz.
Carlos Sainz from Ferrari.
Yeah.
I'm going to take Lando Norris from McLaren just for which probably going to be Max Verstappen, but let's see if Lando can do it. And Chris, that about wraps it up. We're going to come back and we'll have all sorts of stories next week about our Long Beach Grand Prix adventure. We hope you can join us at Leopa Restaurant at Long Beach Friday and Saturday night, April 19 and 20. This is the Speed Traveler Roadshow. We'll see you next week.